Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Cricket on Forever Sports for today's CSA T20 Cricket Challenge. It is back. The last time we had this tournament was 2019, and it was a bit weird because it was kind of basically made redundant by the fact that we had the Mzansi Super League, but now we are with the fact that the Mzansi Super League didn't happen last year. We now need a T20 tournament, so now we've got the return of the T20 challenge, which was the Ram Slam. It's all a bit of a mess, to be honest. But the only reason I think this year is going to be quite cool is for once in a blue moon, we've actually got Proteas playing domestic cricket, which is going to be sensational. As always, I am joined by Beeks, who will be rooting for the Titans. And I'm going to back my boys, the Lions, the entire tournament. So who knows? Maybe we'll get to a Lions Titans final, and we could do a live watch along and get a bit spicy on the podcast. But Beeks, you up?
I'm good. I'm very excited for this year's tournament. It's about time we got some Proteas back in.
Well, that's the thing. And I mean, looking at the Lions squad, I mean, Lions squad, they've signed so many players, so many Proteas, but they just never play. I mean, what's the point of having a bowler if he plays 2 matches for you the entire year? You know, so for all we've got all these Proteas, well, they're never playing, so it's not really about that, is it?
Yeah.
And one then imagines in terms of contracts that they want to pay to play. Like, there's no way for bowlers being paid by the Lions during those 3-month tours.
Well, I mean, he does have his national contract, so
yeah.
I don't know what that covers.
I don't know, but hey, so it's kicking off tomorrow. It's going to be the Knights Titans, and I think they're starting at 10, followed by the Dolphins versus the Cobras at 2:30. So, yeah, look, and hopefully, I mean, the entire tournament is taking place in Durban, so rain will be a factor. A lot of people are wondering why they decided not to go to Cape Town or PE even, or maybe even the Highveld or Bloem or something like that. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But I think having it in Durban will make the conditions quite tricky. So what do you think is going to be quite useful now that we're going to be in Durban?
Look, I know, the whole thing of having T20s in Durban is, no one really likes it, but a World Cup in India will, it will be an eye opener for us to have this tournament there. And even looking at the Momentum One Day Cup, having it in Poch, that pitch was turning, and that was very good experience for some of these domestic players to have that understanding of how these pitches work if they want to make that next step to, making that World Cup as this kind of French players. So I think, it's definitely needed. It's good planning.
Do you think there are any spots available for the T20 World Cup? I mean, if somebody like a Grant Rudolphson goes and averages, 50 the entire tournament, do you think he's got any chance of making the squad? Or are you thinking that we've pretty much got a predetermined squad at a push? A couple of the players who made it to Pakistan tour now might be in the framework.
Well, look, I think when you go into a World Cup, you have to take, your best players, your most experienced players and so on. But at the same time, 2 World Cups in 2 years, a lot can change, especially having it in 2, kind of different types of conditions. So, depending on how some of these players play now, if it's not this one, it could be the next one, just depending on, how things go from now. I think there are spots available. Look, if we're talking about the likes of Tahir and de Villiers not being in the picture, we must say, some of these players in the domestic scene must be looking at some of these spots and thinking, look, maybe I can sneak a spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think something like George Linde is probably sneaking in as your second choice spinner. If you're going to play 2 spinners, you're probably going to have him as a spinning all-rounder. For me, I think there must be availability at the top of the order. I don't think we're that settled there. I think we've got Jan Milan, we've got Reza Hendricks, we've got Temba Bavuma, who've all played there. But we're still, I think, not quite 100% certain on who will walk out with Quinton de Kock in the first match at the end of the year. So that's probably an area also there. And also, I feel like Nokia and Rabada, cool. But if they're not going to play, who are our seamers? Because our seamers got absolutely taken apart. All of them. Junior Dada got taken apart. Clinton Steeman got taken apart. Lucius Palmer got taken apart. All our frontline seamers got taken apart in Pakistan.
Look, and, someone like Nandre Berger getting the snub but not, playing a single game, I think that was quite worrying in my regard. I'm a big fan of him. So
CSA,
that's what I'm saying, so I know they have to reach their transformation targets, with some of their picks, but we kind of need to look at, these World Cups as an opportunity to do well. And, this tournament could be a straight shootout for some of these players. You might be surprised.
Well, I think for the first time, as much as we could talk about the fact that our domestic scene is so bad because we've got the Proteas, we can finally kind of maybe actually say, well, you know what? This is going to be a decent standard of cricket. This can be a fair reflection. I mean, it's one thing if you've got batsmen who are performing against bowling lineup with somebody like Sasanda Magala, and I like him. I think he deserves a call up. But if he's like the best you will face, it's a completely different thing when you're playing against a team where Sasanda Magala is the guy you have to go after because you've already seen out Lucas Pamela and KJ Rabada. That's a whole different dynamic,
Well, it will help some of those players, especially to understand the situations they might be thrusted in the future.
Yeah. So look, let's hope that we're in for a high standard of cricket. It's a very short tournament, 17 games. It all culminates next weekend with the final on the 28th. So I mean, it's literally ram bam, and here we go. So 10 days really.
Yeah.
So it's going to be jam packed, and I reckon that pitch must be finished by the end of it. I mean, that Durban pitch.
So I really want to see how it stays in the final.
But John, in terms of, let's go through the squads itself. So let's start with the Lions. Captain by Tembo Vuma. They welcome back the following Proteas: Reza Hendricks, Dwayne Pretorius, Buren Hendricks, Buren Hendricks is already there, but Vian Mulder, Lusa Pamela, Bjorn Fontaine, Ryan Rickleton back from touring, Kakita Rabada, Rassi van der Dussen as well. And I mean, when you're welcoming those back and you still then have the likes of Sisanda Magala, who's on the edge of call-up, Malusi Saboto has been there for years, Aaron Pangiso is a capped player. So, I mean, on paper, all of a sudden, I think that you've got to be looking at the Lions and Titans as your favourites.
Look, they are the standout teams. And, even if you're looking at, building, your strongest 11 with these transformation targets in mind, the Lions just fit the category extremely well. And
let's just go through that Lions live. I know you've got it there.
Yeah. So look, if I built a team here, and it should reach all the targets. But you're having Hendricks opening the batting with Ryan Rickleton, who I hope will open. It will either be him or Bobuma, and one of them will go to 3.
I'm almost hoping that we see Tembo open, simply because I think that's where the Proteas want to potentially deploy him if he is looking to play in the T20. So but it's also difficult because I think Ryan Rickleton's been quite good there. But I think I'd probably like to see Tembo open the batting if that's where Proteas are thinking about it. But so already there you've got a player of colour in Reza Hendricks and Tembo Vuma. So that's 2 players already, and we haven't even got to number 4 yet.
Yeah, and I'm loving this Lions middle order because it's so destructive. You have Rossi coming in at 4. You have, you can either put Mulder or Dwayne Pretorius at number 5. I think Pretorius, as much as Mulder, it's his time to show himself as South Africa's premium all-rounder. Pretorius just offers so much with the bat. I think having him at that number 5 spot.
He hits a long ball. He's a destructive batsman. He's played something. I mean, in the Zambia Super League, he played that incredible innings for the Polar Rocks. So, I think Dwayne Pretorius comes in before him. I think he's got the ability to find a boundary.
But we don't even need to go as back as the MSL. We can just talk about the Pakistan series. How good did he look with the bat?
Yeah, I mean, stupid maybe in that last game, but I mean that second game or the first game as well. I mean, he's just got the power.
So, look, I would put Pretorius at number 5, Mulder at 6. Then you got Forte coming in at 7. And then we've got the ripe bowling in Magala, Rabada, Pangiso. And then you can either put Buren Hendricks or Sapamna. I would like Sapamna to get a lot more time. But that, again, we love that left arm option. So I think Hendricks might just pick him. But I think they will be very rotational.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm very interested to see how Sunday Magala goes through. Made the move up with Luto, lost a little bit of weight, probably needs to lose a little bit more, but he is a very, very good T20 bowler.
He's been bowling.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He's been taking the mantle. I just feel for the likes of Delano Porchita, Aldred Hawken, Saboto, Ruan Hasbrook. I don't really see how in a 10-day tournament they get any sort of game time.
Look, I think someone like Hasbrook might sneak a game because, we are playing on slow pitches. So, having that spin option is, very viable. But when you have Pretorius and Mulder there, with their
And you've
good
still got
change-ups,
Manguso and Fortain, so you've still got two
you know,
spinners there. So yeah, it's
but I think,
interesting.
the Lions are the standout team. I think they're the team to beat. They make. I think they've made the perfect balance of the squad.
Yeah, and they are
Yeah,
they are the defending champions. And it was actually the tournament 2 years
yeah,
ago, 2019, which put Temba Bavuma back on the ODI radar. I mean, he was just smashing runs for fun. That was when
yeah,
suddenly he kept saying, I want to be backed in the one day side, and then the T20 side, everybody said saying no, like he could barely make the test side. Then he had this tournament, and suddenly people were like, okay, well, you can't really ignore him. So another big opportunity,
yeah.
especially for him as captain. Another big opportunity for captains is we look at the Dolphins squad. We've got Keshav Maharaj, who will be captaining the side. And in terms of their sort of key players, Sol Ovie travel with the Proteas, Robbie Friedling's there, lots of experience there. Keane Pearson, I'm really looking forward to see what Gerard Rudolphson does. I mean, another wicketkeeper batsman, so many in the country at the moment. Dave Miller's back, Petr Quai's back. You've got Darren Pavlon. Mutasami's there as well. Ethan Bosch. I'll be interested to see how if Masetla gets any sort of game time, and I mean how he's just sort of his career's kind of faded a little bit and really struggled to hold. I mean I remember his game for the Proteas where he hit a six with the first ball and then got caught and had a strike rate of like 600 cheers. That was it. Good chats.
Well, I think having Peterson in the squad, it's going to make an interesting balance. I know Miller is traveling back to Pakistan soon. I don't know how many games he
Yeah,
will be
it's all
playing.
very odd. Yeah, but there is that. Yeah.
Mm.
Look, I mean, when does the
So
PSL
look,
actually start? Because I
Mustafi
mean,
might get
because I'm just trying to
yeah,
think. I
but
mean,
look, Mustafi might get more game time in that regard when Miller leaves because I think the Dolphins quite a long batting lineup. I must say it's very impressive. But yeah, like you said, he has fallen off. So we wonder, how much game time he will get. But yeah, I think look, the Dolphins are looking strong. It's very exciting to see what Petr does this year.
hmm.
I think the conditions suit him. He is playing back at home, so he needs to prove himself
I think
more. What he can offer with the bat,
especially
especially.
bat, and I think he needs to also start showing he can bowl the death. Because I worry when he bowls the death that as somebody who's so good with his variations, if they don't come off, it just I mean that last over he bowled in the T20, it just wasn't good enough. You cannot be bowling, two full tosses and a wide because you're trying to bowl knuckleballs and slow balls and stuff like that because it's just not acceptable at that level. I mean, to have what I think was like 12, 13 to defend and concede 18 and bowl
Yeah,
four
no.
balls. It's just not good enough. But there are some good players around him, so interested to see how
Do
sort of that
you think
balance.
he tries to?
I do. I sometimes think that as much as I love a slow ball and a knuckleball and stuff like that, I also sometimes think that when you're bowling at the death, just a standard stock delivery, wide Yorker doesn't have to be a wide Yorker knuckleball. It could just be a wide Yorker, And I mean, Dre
Or
Batur has
even a
also
cut.
showed, yeah, something that's just a little bit more controlled. It doesn't always have to be a knuckleball or out the back of the hand. It doesn't always have to be. I enjoy variations and I understand the value of them, but if you don't hit them when it counts, it just makes it look even worse. It's one thing if you're trying to just bowl a cutter and you bowl it wide and you've got your line wrong. But when you bowl a cut, when you try and bowl a knuckleball and it goes wide, people just sit there saying, well, why are you trying so hard? Why would you do that in such a pressure situation? Don't try the hardest deliveries at the most important times.
No.
So but then we've got your
No.
boys, the Titans.
But
Klaassen captaining it. You've got Tinas de I
yeah,
mean, the experience in the side. I mean, even if we don't look at the current Proteas, having Tinas de Bruin there, having Henry Davids there. I mean, that's two big players. I mean, but then the Proteas, you've got Chris Morrison squad, now the most expensive IPL player ever. 32.5 million
geez.
rand he went for earlier. So, Chris, if you're watching this, when we get you on the podcast, please drink some new chap. But then Dean Elgar, Aidan Markram, Junior Dalla, Okukle clearly who's back, didn't play. Simon Harmer, well, Harmerson back. Tabari Shamsi, one of his best tours ever, really showed his class. And Lungingidi. And then you've got the likes of, as we talked about earlier, Dayan Gilliam, Lizard Williams, a couple of players around there. So, again, another powerhouse squad full time. They always have a powerhouse squad, though, even without Quinton de Kock playing.
Yeah. Look, I think my only worry with the Titans is, an interesting snub from the squad is Deeney missing out on the squad. I think
Yeah.
he was bowling well. He's been bowling well generally in the past 12 months. And for him to miss out on the spot in this I wouldn't say it's worrying, but, he probably would have loved to get some game time. But if you're just looking at the squad in general, very strong with the batting. I'm interested to see where Algar bats because some might suggest putting him at 3, some might put him down at 6. Just all depends on look. And I think his batting has improved. It shows in the test with his strike rate as well. It's gotten a whole lot better.
He's found
So
more
it
run
will
scoring
be
options,
interesting
I
to
think,
see
to his
where.
game.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see because if you're looking at the middle order where you have the brain, you have Klaassen, and you have Algo himself. It will be interesting to see how they juggle it, and then you have your all-rounders coming in. It will be very interesting to see where he goes. And I think Klaassen, having learned a lot from the Protest series in Pakistan, he's got a chip on his shoulder where he kind of needs to prove to himself and not just the selector that he deserves a Protest spot.
He's been in the first Australians. I think he's been backed a few times, and for me, he just hasn't really paid back the faith of the selection. He's had a couple of good innings, but he hasn't been consistent enough. And as a wicketkeeper, when you've got Ryan Rickleton, and you've got Grant Wilson, and you've got Kyle Verreyn, and you've got Senior Temba Kashile, there's so many wicketkeeping options available. If Klaas is not coming off and he's older, why would you continue backing him when you can go and say, right, let's bring in any of those 4 I just named, literally bring in any of those 4. Rickleton's in incredible form and Kyle Verreyn's in incredible form, but Grant Wilson's also in great form. So blessed with wicketkeepers at the moment.
Yeah, very true. I think just another thing on the Titans, sorry, is I'm worried kind of the balance of the team because, we brought in Morris and Harm with big money. But now, again, these transformation targets for the squad, it's going to make it difficult to squeeze them both in because, who do you sacrifice, who
Yeah,
gets
because you
in,
kind of get
does
the feeling
Algar
that
sit out?
with not too many players of colour in the batting scheme of things, you're kind of sort of looking at and thinking, well, Junior Dulla's going to have to play.
Yeah.
Lele is going to have to play. Shams is going to have to play. Lungi is going to have to play. That is not batting.
Yeah.
That's a tail that starts at 7, So, yeah, you got
Yeah.
Simon Harmer. You can have Simon Harmer and you can add Chris Morris, but then suddenly you've only got space for like sort of 5 out-and-out batsmen, so...
Exactly. So the combinations will be interesting, but that's the only headache for the Titans. What do they go with? Who actually plays? Does someone like Algo not play because he's probably not in the plans for the T20 World Cup, but he's still a class batsman with all the experience in the world.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see people like Grant Thompson might struggle to get a game. Steve Bonilla McCann might struggle to get a game. Greg Matlakwana might struggle to get a game. Lizard Williams as well. So there's always rough on the players to kind of hold it down and perform while the pros are away, and then suddenly the pros come back and you kind of get shunted. So you got to find the balance, and somebody like, look, normally I'd say somebody like KJ Barton needs the rest, but he hasn't played that much cricket, so you can't always necessarily say we've got to rest our Proteas because they weren't even supposed to play in this tournament. They were supposed to be isolating for Australia, and now it's all changed. It's all a bit of a stuffer, but I think the tournament is better off. This tournament's better off, but Cricket South Africa would have actually, we know we would have preferred a test series. Then we go to the Cobras, captained by Tony DeZorzi. Some big players, Christian Jonker, Corbin Bosch, stay there, George Lindy, Janneman Malan, got Jason Smith in there, Carl Verreyn, Andre Berger, Zubair Hamza. I'm frustrated at Hamza, who I thought when he made that step up to the test team looked so good and was playing. And once they've played some very nice cricket in the One Day Cup, and it kind of just fallen away. But I think the batting, I don't know. I'm trying to work out where do you think the Cobras are going to struggle? Batting, bowling. What's going to be their Achilles heel?
If again, I kind of built an 11 here, and I don't think with the batting they'll struggle as much. I assume Malan will open with DeZorzi, having Hamza coming at 3, Brainer coming 4, Christian Jonker at 5, then possibly like someone like Jason Smith coming into the squad at 6. It'll all be interesting to see how they kind of work out their combinations. I liked them in the Momentum One Day Cup because they had, I think, 3 spinners operating very, very well. So, but now having their Proteas back, I wonder in terms of the balance that will Berger be the only seamer in the team and all of that. So you know, I'm hoping that their batting will be explosive up front, and hopefully retain their wickets towards the end. I think their bowling is going to be a bit of a worry
Yeah, I think
in terms of where they're
looking at the
going.
side, the bowling definitely does sort of raise the most flags. And again, you mentioned Teeny. One sort of wonders if it's such a difficult one because look, now in this tournament he would be playing every game for the Cobras, but he's moved to Titans for the games when the Proteas aren't there. Getting the opportunity throughout the season and working. And look, if you want to play for the Proteas, you want to be going to the Titans. But if you're a batsman, I think you must be wanting to play for Cobras. You surely, as a batsman, you want to be mentored by Ashwell Prince at the moment. He's just churning batsmen out of that Cobras side. You look at the Milan brothers. You look at Varane, Subaya Hamza. There's so many batsmen coming out of the Cobras. But so would you?
It'll be interesting where they go.
Yeah, I think. To be honest, I think it's one of the weaker Cobra squads we've seen in recent times. There's still lots of good players there, but I always used to think the Cobras could, look, growing up, there was always so many good players at the Cobras. But look, there's some good batting there. I think that's going to be the key. If the batting can do enough, you can hope that George Linde and Nanja Berger need to take a lot of responsibility in terms of leading that bowling attack. And then for me, very, very interested to see how the Knights do, because they don't have a lot of stars necessarily. The Proteas coming back.
Yeah.
Who came back for them besides? I think it was literally Pat from Billion. That's it. The big exciting one, of course, is obviously Gerald Coetzee fit, and he'll play. But you've got Budaza, who's bowling very nicely. You've got Jacques Neyman, who didn't really come off for the Proteas, so he's back. And he'll have a lot to prove because he faced 6 balls in international cricket, didn't miss a single delivery from a leg and got bowled. Shame. He looked. The problem is most people in South Africa have never obviously seen him play, and then you see those 6 balls and you think, how did he get into the plane? How has he made it here? So he'll have something to prove. There's Sean van Berg, the Mr. Reliable. Far is a big player for them. I think he's going to be one of those players who's with that experience. There'll be a lot of expectations of Reina Fontaine because he's kind of a hot name at the moment. Not really his format. Really enjoys the 4 days. But I'm also seeing. I'd like to see Wandile Mkwetu do more. I think he's someone who we keep waiting for him to really pitch up. We heard so much about him. He was hyped so much as a youngster. He scored so many runs at schoolboy cricket, and I've spoken to people who have played against him at their junior levels, and they all said, listen, this kid's good. So I'd like to see him try and translate that this week and really try and push through.
Well, I think as he matures, saying that I'm his age, but
I was about to say
as he matures.
No, I think he's 22. Relax. I think he's turned 22 there.
But I think he needs to figure out which format suits him the best. I seen him more in the Momentum One Day Cup. He's batted better where he's had the time to, build in innings. I haven't seen a lot of him in this level now in T20 cricket.
Well,
obviously, schoolboy cricket.
I don't think he actually has a T20 career. I don't think he's played because obviously, he's 22 years old. He hasn't played an MSL. He hasn't. Yeah. The last T20 challenge was 2 years ago. He would have been 20 at the time. So I don't think he doesn't have a T20 career. So
so it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. But I think this is it will be the next 2 years for him will be very interesting to see where he goes, because very soon enough people will be calling for him to kind of get into that Proteas corner, just that mold. And I think he is definitely a good enough batsman, and very good leader in itself. It will just be interesting to see, with the abundance of wicket keepers that we have in this country, where he fits in and which format he fits in.
Yeah, and the problem is all the wicketkeepers are also so young. Rulofsson, Oshile, Varane, Rickleton, they're all youngsters. So you don't want to be a wicketkeeper. If you're a 20-year-old wicketkeeper, just drop the gloves and start batting, because you don't have any hope as a wicketkeeper. You're going to have to make it as a batsman. I was even saying that Rickleton arguably will have to try and make it as a batsman. Because you could see Kyle Varane will surely have to be in the team together, but which one's going to keep,
Yeah.
And then we still got Quinton de Kock for years to come.
The Knights will be an interesting team. it's very weird where they, they look more the weaker built squads, but they will seem to have kind of moments where they will, possibly bowl very well and they can chase low totals. But in terms of building an innings, Jonathan Van Dier coming into the team, I think he'll have a lot to prove. But I don't see them doing as well this year. There'll be exciting moments. I'm hoping Joe can take us a lot of game time.
Yeah, I think look, at the end of the day, it's also T20 cricket. So you've got to, as one of those, if Pat Van Bullion scores runs for fun over the next 10 days, he can single-handedly win it for them. If Gerald Coetzee decides to bowl like we all know he can bowl, that, as I said, it's T20 cricket. You need 2-3 players to just have a worldie of a tournament, and that can carry you. We saw it. We saw the fact that Rizwan single-handedly carried Pakistan the entire tour. He did. It was
But
no one else contributing.
Yeah, and it's quite sad. I wish there was like loan systems that we would introduce during these types of tournaments where someone like Tandon Tini, he'll fit quite nicely into this team. Having that other team option. So it's sad. Look, it's all nice to say, but I think the problem is with the Protea players all of a sudden being available, it kind of made the coaches go crazy.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting to see how the whole new sort of format that we're going to see next season sort of impacts this. The fact that players might be more sort of spread out and might get more opportunity. There's less contracted players, but in theory they'll hopefully get more opportunity to play and to try and make a name for them. But that's the sort of idea of it. And then finally the Warriors. Also, I think Warriors could be a dark horse. I think they've got some. They've got some match winners. I mean, Chile is captaining them. You've got Gian Clute there, John Smuts, Vian Love has been around. I love Marco Murray. I think he's one of the most. I think he's someone that's got to be on the radar. Such a destructive batsman. His T20 stats. I mean, he doesn't get talked enough about, but cheap as he hits the ball hard. And that is a proper farmer's guns that are just going through that ball. He hits a ball. You see it in the MXL. He hits the ball huge. I mean, his T20 stats here, he averages 34 with a strike rate of 144 across 57 T20s. It's not like it's 1 or 2. 57 T20s and his strike rate's 144.
That's ridiculous.
He's got 2 T20 hundreds.
Look, I don't think he's talked enough about it.
I don't know.
Looking at the last MSL, he was destructive. He was sending all these batsmen all across the park.
Yeah.
And he's going to have, again, an interesting future. Hopefully he gets more looked into. It'll be interesting to see where he bats in this team as well.
Yeah. Look, well, John Smuts for me has got quite a lot to prove at the top of the order. But I mean, you look at the bowling, and having Glenton Stearman and Anuk Nokia as your 2 bowlers, you could do a lot worse, eh? You can do a lot worse.
Yeah. And I'm just hoping that the supporting cast kind of support them in that regard. And it will be interesting to see how players like Tate, Jay de Klerk as well, who might get a couple of games, and how they will react. I think also it's quite interesting to see. There's some players here that we obviously would have liked to see in this Warriors team, knowing the abundance of talent in the Warriors Academy. But again, they're kind of a team building for the future. So
yeah, and they will help. It's also a team that they're not shy to give opportunities. We've seen lots of different players. No Matthew Bretsky, eh? I haven't seen if he's injured or not, I think, but he's probably the biggest name that's just not there.
Yeah, I haven't heard any. He was also playing the Momentum One Day Cup and he's fine. So it will be interesting to see if he does have an injury. I think that is quite a big snub if he is fit. Especially since he's again one of those.
I know at one stage I think he was struggling with an injury. I think he had a finger injury or something like that during the Momentum One Day Cup. So I think that might have been a sort of raising his touch. So I don't know if it was a case of him just not being fit enough, but it is a strange omission. So one would imagine he's injured because surely he would be included.
Yeah. Look, I think you and I having a connection to the Eastern Cape, we'll be watching it very closely. It will, a lot of these players do need to put up their hands. I think Senior will have. It's going to be an interesting time for him. He's captaining the squad, and I was very surprised by that. Selection.
I'm a fan of it, and I'm not a fan at the same time. I like the idea of somebody that young being given responsibility. I do worry that somebody who is under a lot of pressure, I think, not quite in the form he would like to be. I mean, you look at the 4-day series, and I think he scored 150 during December. No hundreds. So I think he scored a bit of runs here and there, but it's not quite the form that he was showing. I think after his first season in first class cricket, he was averaging like over 50 at one stage. Had a bit of a sort of slow down, so he kind of burst into the scene, and now it's having to rebuild. So I worry that in a time where I'd like to really see him focus on his game, is this maybe not too much responsibility on him?
Or maybe it's just a responsibility that he needs. We don't know how certain players react to having all this biggest responsibility, but I think eventually he will need to get there where they will look at him as a leader. Looking at 5 years on, and he needs to kind of get his head out there now. He's got a lot of experience around him, in the squad, which is quite nice to have. So hopefully he won't feel too pressured to necessarily lead the squad, but to make important decisions at the right time. I think it's a good time for him, despite how young he is. I think it's time for him to kind of be put in that light now, where he is the captain, but he's got a lot of experience helping him.
Look, we got back. I think Robin Peterson's building something quite cool at the Warriors. I'm very excited to see what they do. Because a bit of a sort of they've had moments where they've been fantastic, and then a couple of their players leave, and they have to sort of start again. Losing Sasana Magala and Lucas Apamla, was huge for them. Your two sort of primary bowlers. Yeah. But I back Robin Peterson as a coach. Actually, I think he's going to do quite well down there. So, look, to wrap up, what are you predicting? Who are you predicting in the final, and who's going to start?
Look, I think if we, just looking at the beginning of the tournament, I think we're going to see the front runners, the Titans and Lions, kind of push through. I think real dark horses will be the Warriors and maybe even the Cobras, depending how they build their squad in terms of spin and everything. So I would like to. The dream final would be the Yuxgate derby between the Lions and the Titans, but I would also like to see a dark horse like the Warriors, like the Cobras, or even the Dolphins, just sneak in a place. I don't think it will be as widespread as everyone thinks in terms of the Lions and the Titans will just dominate whatever. I think we're going to see a lot of surprise results. Look, I just want to see good cricket, all in all.
Yeah, 100%. I want to see some very good individual performances. I'd like to see some youngsters standing up. I'm really interested to see how the captaining goes. I think we're seeing a lot of different captains. We're seeing some with lots of experience, some with not so much experience, some with lots of pressure on them, some with little pressure. So a lot of sort of intricate, small details that I think we need to look out over the tournament itself. But we will be doing probably catch up every couple of days and just do a bit of a review on what's cooking and stuff like that ahead of the final next week Sunday. So if you want to make sure you're up to date to the T20 challenge, do smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Me and BK will be back very soon telling you exactly what's going down. Maybe even talk about a bit of IPL and some of the deals that got picked up. Lots of stuff. I think Marco Jansen actually got a contract. So maybe we'll have to break that down some there. BK, thank you very much.
Yeah, very good time. I'm very excited for the cricket coming up in the next week, and I'm keen to get back on and keep talking about domestic cricket.
Brilliant. As I said, people do remember to smash like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll both be back very, very soon.